Diana, the woman I had cherished and loved for 10 years, was my first love. But on our wedding anniversary, she was lost in thought, staring at a picture of her deceased ex. He was my frenemy. Her every glance seemed laced with a deep-seated loathing for me. Who gave her the audacity to torment me like this? For years, I haven't had a single peaceful night's sleep. It feels like I'm living in a nightmare someone else created for me. And yet, I was hopelessly in love with her. I loved her so much that one moment I wanted to strangle her, and the next, my heart would ache for her beyond words. I had just gotten home from work to find her sitting alone on the sofa, staring into space. The several wine bottles on the table were already empty. The entire apartment was thick with a heavy, oppressive air. I frowned, and a moment later, as if sensing my presence, Diana slowly lifted her head. "Frank, you're back," she said. I ignored her and walked straight over, my gaze fixed on the picture frame in her hand. I would recognize the man in that photo, even in death. It was her first love, the one she treasured above all else. And I was nothing more than a replacement. Of course, if it weren't for me, she and her first love would never have been torn apart by death. I let out a cold laugh as I looked at her. Diana, the woman I had cherished. After all these years, she had finally come to hate me over him. "Diana, you're looking at a picture of your first love, aren't you?" My voice suddenly cut through the silence of the room, each word deliberate and dripping with sarcasm. "What if I am?" she admitted without hesitation, pressing the frame to her heart with a tragically beautiful smile. "Oh, it's nothing," I said, shrugging as if it didn't matter. "I was just wondering why you didn't answer my calls. You weren't busy with." I dragged out the last word intentionally, and just as I expected, her expression shifted. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her brow furrowed in annoyance. "It's not like I don't know that you and your first love were inseparable back then. Aren't you only this brazen because you know I love you?" Hearing my words, she burst into sarcastic laughter. She set the frame down and slowly raised her head to look at me. Her stare caught me off guard, making me feel flustered and exposed. I stood frozen in place for what felt like half an hour, until a numbness crept into my limbs, each passing second a heavy drop on my heart. I drove back to the office, completely shattered. Diana's final words echoed in my head again and again. He was my first love. That's right. The woman I loved was living her life for another man. At 11, I was taken in by the Williams family and signed what amounted to an indenture contract. The patriarch, Mr. Williams himself, gave me the name Frank. It was a constant reminder that my life was meant to be one of service to their family. For Diana's sake, I was treated like a dog by them. I first met Diana on an afternoon when I was being bullied. She appeared like an angel and handed me a bandage. In that moment, she saved me. To me, Diana wasn't just a savior. She was my life, the light I was desperate to hold on to, no matter the cost. Wherever she was, that was my home. But she personally destroyed that home, leaving it in ruins. All because I was the reason she and her first love were separated by death. Until the accident, Diana had suffered from asthma since she was a child and couldn't handle severe stress. I watched, helpless, as her condition flared up because of me. I panicked. That was the day. Diana's father used the contract I had signed, the one that bound me to them, to force me to marry her. I agreed without a second thought. It was all I had ever dreamed of. I thought I had finally gotten what I wanted, that the storm had passed. I believed her first love would eventually become a memory. But I was wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. Diana's coldness was a constant reminder that I was just an opportunistic replacement. I had pushed my own first love, who was living abroad, into the arms of someone else. I deserved this. Diana's first love was my frenemy. I looked at her, my eyes bloodshot and my voice hoarse. "I'm sorry, I murmured. Frank, will you marry me?" she had asked, her eyes shut tight with pain as she refused another man's ring. In that moment, the entire world went out of focus. Only the woman before me remained impossibly clear. Her vulnerability, her pained expression, each was a needle piercing my already shattered heart. And now, she regretted her choice. Her home was wherever he was. How ridiculous. I slammed my fist against the wall. I wouldn't let her go. I absolutely wouldn't. I would make sure she couldn't just cast me aside and walk away. The next time we saw each other, we were both incredibly drunk. Diana didn't expect to see me there. When her eyes met mine, she froze for several seconds before snapping out of it. She stumbled forward, reaching out to steady me. "Why did you drink so much?" Thinking about her and her first love sent a sharp, spreading pain through my chest. "Diana, do you really think I can't live without you?" I asked, pushing her away as I advanced on her. There were things at the office I had to handle personally. I couldn't sleep, so I didn't come home. I had too many work dinners, so I just slept at the office, she claimed. I laughed, seeing right through her lies. Have you forgotten, Diana, that I'm not a good person? I watched her calmly. Then I pulled the wedding ring from my finger and tossed it on the floor in front of her. Diana, let's get a divorce. In that instant, all the color drained from Diana's face. She instinctively took a step back, her hands clenching in a fist so tight her nails dug into her palms. Frank, you can't even be bothered to pretend anymore? She asked, her eyes welling up and her voice trembling. This was a marriage of convenience. I never loved you, I said, repeating the same words she had once said to me. Isn't he your one true first love? I said, each word a deliberate jab at her heart. Finally, she squeezed her eyes shut and turned her head away, unable to look at me. Diana, I'm letting you go. After saying my piece, I turned to leave. I looked her straight in the eye and said, one word at a time, what's so important at the office that you can't come home? I'm moving out. I'm going back to my own place. Are you happy now? Diana's body went rigid. The seconds ticked by. I searched her eyes, desperate to find something, even the slightest hint of regret. But there was nothing. She just held onto my hand, repeating the same things over and over. Frank, you're only acting this way because you know I love you. There was never any love between us. I don't want it. You can't give me what I want anyway. Time passed. The next I heard of her was from my friend, CcWei, who told me Diana had been in a car accident. When I saw her, Diana's face was a ghostly white, completely drained of color. She weakly whispered my name, Frank. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting for control. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Diana standing not far off. Her high heels were gone. Her bare feet were covered in dirt. I tried to suppress the turmoil in my chest, but I was losing the battle. Still, I forced myself to be cruel, to speak with finality. I'm moving out today. I'll give you some time. You should think things over. The color drained from her face. Where else would you go besides my family's house? She retorted. Have you forgotten that you have nowhere else to go? With that, she turned and walked away. I watched her leave, an overwhelming bitterness welling up inside me. I looked up at Diana. Suddenly, it felt as if I didn't know her at all, this woman I had loved for a decade. I had a laugh. I suppose I'd never actually eaten a meal she'd cooked for me before. She had changed so much, and I hadn't even noticed. All these years, I had been living in misery. There were moments I wished my love wasn't for Diana, that it was for someone else entirely. I loved her for 10 whole years. I once believed my love could turn her into a beautiful bird in a cage, belonging only to me. But reality slapped me hard across the face. I pulled my gaze away, walked right past her, and started packing my things. I was starting to hate her. Diana suddenly looked up, her eyes meeting mine. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then closed it, saying nothing at all, though her eyes were impossibly red. I'm tired, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. I'll just consider this a huge mistake I made, one that I won't make again. I shook my head. Diana, it's been more than 10 years. You owe me for that. She opened her mouth, but ultimately said nothing, only tightening her grip on my hand. We were never equals, she whispered. Frank, do you have any idea how annoying you are? So, I've been a complete joke this whole time. I yanked my hand away. She stumbled backward several steps. I paused for a moment. I told you I don't want it. She looked at me, her face pale, her lips barely moving. Frank, can you please not leave? I turned away, refusing to look back. Suddenly, like a madwoman, she lunged at me. Frank, I'm pregnant. I ran, desperately trying to get away. It felt like an army was chasing me from behind. My vision blurred, and then I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was to the sharp smell of disinfectant as I slowly forced my heavy eyelids open. Frank, you're awake. It was CcWei, sitting by my hospital bed, her face streaked with tears. Didn't I tell you? She sobbed. You can't keep carrying everything by yourself. It hurts me to see you like this. What's wrong? CcWei asked, her expression serious as she carefully felt my forehead. Are you running a fever? I'll get a doctor right now. For a moment, my mind was completely blank. CcWei was so furious, she actually punched my arm. What are you talking about? Don't you realize you almost died? I opened my mouth to speak. If I hadn't been there, a fall like that could have killed her. I already called the police. Frank, are you out of your mind? She yelled. You collapsed on the side of the road. If I hadn't happened to drive by, do you have any idea what could have happened? I just stared at her, a little stunned by her dramatic what-ifs. I'm fine now, I said quietly. CcWei glared at me, exasperated. You're so stubborn. You'd rather suffer than admit you need help. You just wait, she threatened. CcWei, just let it go, I said, suddenly feeling exhausted. I didn't want any of this to happen. Just drop it. My ID and all my important documents were in my bag. If I was going to leave, I had to make it a clean break. I timed it for when Diana should be at the office. I quickly packed up my desk and headed for the apartment. My apartment. Someone had already been hired to clean it. The place was spotless. I had been about to move in my mother's heirlooms to make this our marital home. Before my mom passed away, she held my hand and told me, "Home is wherever she is." I stared blankly at the ring on my finger and gave a small, bitter smile. Then suddenly I smelled food cooking. It was a faint scent, but it was mixed with a familiar feminine fragrance. It was Diana. She was here. We stood at opposite ends of the hallway, staring at each other across the distance. She looked thinner. I had no idea what game she was playing now. A huge sense of panic gripped me. I moved stiffly, descending the stairs one step at a time. The lights were off, and there was no sign of Diana in the room. A strange sense of disappointment washed over me. Then I saw her phone, its screen lit up. On it was a photo of her and her first love, both of them smiling radiantly. "Frank," she said, looking at me slowly, a gentle smile playing on her lips. The single overhead light cast a lonely glow on her, making her face look deathly pale. My heart dropped. Finally, she lowered her head and turned away in shame. Had she been playing me for a fool all this time? The thought that the woman I had loved for a decade had cheated on me drove me to the brink of madness. I slammed my fist into the wall, a sharp, searing pain shooting through my knuckles. I lifted my head and stared holes into Diana's back. "Frank," she began, turning to face me, her eyes wide with panic. There was also a flicker of guilt in them that I couldn't decipher. I ignored her panic and just kept repeating myself. "Frank, what are you doing?" she cried, asking the same question. Her familiar scent, combined with the sight of that photo with her first love, felt like a knife twisting in my heart. "Get out. Just get out of my sight." Her crying only intensified, and she glared at me, refusing to move. "Frank, you need to calm down." Diana clenched her fists and spoke to me, enunciating every word. "What are you laughing at? Why do you have to laugh at me? Diana, you're the same as always saying things that make no sense. I told you you're mine in this life." Her face was ashen as she continued to back away, unable to form a single word. I looked at this broken, miserable woman in front of me. An unspeakable sadness washed over me. When you love someone to that extreme, it's like tending to a rose bush. You water it every day, you fertilize it, but it simply refuses to bloom. You start to think it's your fault, and all that's left is the pain. "I didn't do it," she insisted. "Diana, we don't owe each other anything," I countered. "I just drank too much. I never thought something like this would happen," she tried to explain. "But it's just that I'm getting more and more. I'm finding you more and more disgusting." The loathing in my eyes was as sharp as a poisoned dagger. Her expression faltered, and she suddenly raised a hand to her chest. "I just loved you too much. I never wanted to ruin your relationship." I remained silent. She quickly closed the distance between us. "Frank, stop this. Whatever you need, you just have to ask, and I'll help you." I turned to look at Diana, her face deathly pale. "Can you please stop pushing me?" I froze for a second. "Diana, let's sign the papers." I held out the divorce agreement I had prepared. With that said, I turned to leave. "Frank, wait," she called out. She suddenly wrapped her arms around me from behind. I lost my balance and stumbled, tumbling down the stairs. Diana screamed in panic. "Frank, are you okay?" I struggled up from the floor, a sharp pain radiating from the back of my head. I could feel a warm liquid trickling down my neck. Diana rushed over, trying to see my injury. I looked at her, a sarcastic smile spreading across my face against my will. "You're as disgusting as you've always been. Just looking at you makes me sick." "Diana, how did I never realize what a shameless, pathetic person you are? I'm getting married too. You should just focus on your own life." "But why, Diana? Why don't you love me?" I slept until morning. Chloe burst in early and dragged me out of bed. "That woman has been standing downstairs for over 10 hours. Is she crazy? Standing out there all alone in the middle of the night. Isn't she worried something will happen?" My expression remained flat. I just grunted in acknowledgement and said nothing more. Chloe studied me for a moment before sighing. "Frank, what's your plan?" she asked. "Did you already have proof that Diana was cheating? Just say the word, and this file will never see the light of day. Don't worry, I'm not going to prison." Chloe slammed the folder down on the table with a sharp crack. I followed her gaze out the window to the street below. Diana was standing there under a streetlight, completely alone. I was stunned. I could see the pain in Chloe's eyes as she looked at her. Diana's silhouette was stark under the streetlight. "Frank, stop this," she had pleaded, her lips pale and bloodless. "When are we signing?" "I'm in a hurry," I said with a cold smile. "Why is it that I just don't believe you?" "But, Frank, I just can't accept this." She suddenly grabbed my hand and pulled hard, as if trying to drag me down into her own personal abyss. I just watched her, my expression unreadable. I saw the panic deep in her eyes. I knew she was afraid. She was trembling from head to toe, a strange mix of desperation and shame. I hate this so much, Frank. That day when you were lying in a pool of blood, it felt like my entire world just stopped. I laughed a strangely calm sound. And then what? I asked. Her face went as white as a sheet. Frank, please, just forgive me this one time. Can you do that? My gaze drifted over her before finally settling on her face. You've made a terrible mistake, I said. Fine. I laughed back just once. Will you forgive me? She stared at me, her expression unreadable. I was gripping her fingers so tightly they had turned white. But she just said, Frank, some things are in the past. You have to let them go. After that, Diana started coming to see me every day. She always brought my favorite breakfast, and every time, CcWei would throw it out right in front of me. CcWei told me she did it on purpose. She would throw out everything Diana brought, and then refuse to see her. For a while, CcWei became something of a local hero for it, and Diana became a pariah, scorned by everyone. But Diana still showed up every day, waiting for me downstairs at the same time. It was the same routine, day after day. But on this day, when I looked for her, she wasn't there. I thought she had finally given up. I chuckled to myself when I didn't see her downstairs. The next day, Diana was back at the office. She acted as if nothing had happened at all. Things went on as they always had. That afternoon, I went to the office and ran into her. I uploaded the evidence I had gathered to the official website of the Ross Corporation. Their baby products were defective, and the CEO was a man who had abandoned his own family. In an instant, the company's stock plummeted. Public outrage was immense, and every day, protesters gathered below the office building, shouting in anger. I just sent a simple text. Once again, I waited for her downstairs. She called me, hoping we could have a serious talk. On the other end of the line, she said she had been waiting for me. I replied with a curt, "Get lost and don't bother me," then hung up. She didn't pick up again, and I wasn't surprised. I watched her standing there stubbornly for a long time and just had a laugh. It was ridiculous. What right did she think she had? Early the next morning, I got a call from Sophia. She said Diana had lost her mind and tried to kill herself by slitting her wrists. She was in the hospital now. I rushed to the hospital to see her. I didn't say a word. I just hung up the phone. I had no desire to go to the hospital. After all, there was a deep-seated animosity between us. The hospital air was thick with the smell of disinfectant. Diana looked at me, her eyes completely lifeless, without a flicker of emotion. I met her gaze coolly. "Fine," I said. I gently reached out and touched her cheek, my voice hoarse. "Frank," she whispered. I silently pushed her away from me and said, enunciating each word, "Diana, whatever you want, I'll give it to you." "I don't want anything," she choked out. She closed her eyes, her face contorted in pain. I smiled and tossed another copy of the divorce agreement in front of her. "The world doesn't revolve around you, Diana." I turned to leave, adding, "Between you and me, there's nothing left. We don't owe each other a thing." Her breath hitched. Diana stepped forward and signed the divorce papers. She was sobbing uncontrollably. My own eyes were burning as I said, "Frank, I don't owe you anything either." I didn't answer, but she suddenly moved to block my path. The night before I was scheduled to leave, I got a text from Sophia asking to meet. I thought about it for a long time before finally agreeing to go. When I arrived, Sophia was already waiting in the private room. "You must love her a lot," she said. I was silent for a moment, then she let out a sudden, forced laugh. "I loved her for 10 years, and I still couldn't compete with a dead man." I picked up my glass, but said nothing. "Did you know," she continued, "that he loved her for 10 years? It was Diana's father who personally destroyed their relationship." I watched her, my expression calm. "He loved her for 10 years, a whole decade," she said, her face paling as she murmured, "He's a lunatic." She looked at me and explained that she had only married him because of Diana's poor health. All these years, he's been living in misery, a life worse than death, yet not a single day went by that he didn't think of her. When he looked at me, his eyes held only hatred, no love. She watched my expression carefully. She was searching my face, hoping to see a flicker of pain or regret, but she was disappointed. I just looked back at her, my expression a placid, unreadable mask. I gave her no reaction at all. The smile slowly faded from her face, replaced by a deathly pallor. "Why should he get to?" she whispered. He suddenly turned and stared at me, she recalled, and asked, "Have you fallen for her too?" My last memory of her was of her telling me she didn't want me anymore. I suddenly had a laugh. This whole thing, from start to finish, was a drama I had directed and starred in all by myself. They say when you love someone, you have to be willing to be ground into the dust, to smile as you hand them over to someone else. I saw Diana again 2 weeks later. Her face was ashen, her eyes filled with terror as she looked at me. "Frank, please don't be like this. I'm begging you," she pleaded. Nothing ever happened between me and Sophia. A flicker of shame crossed her face, gone in an instant. Her pride wouldn't allow her to show any real weakness. "Frank, can you just give me one more chance?" she asked. "I swear. Can I just stop loving you?" My pride wouldn't allow it, Frank, and Diana's pride wouldn't allow her to beg. I thought I didn't love her anymore either. But the truth is, I was driven mad with jealousy over her. My feelings for her back then were real. It's just that our company was failing. She was always asking me why things had to be this way. I finished her thought for her, my voice weary. "Why won't you give me a chance, huh?" Diana began to tremble even more violently. She had loved me once, and I was even starting to feel something for her. It was like we were a mismatched pair. "But Frank, the truth is, I don't like you. I just feel sorry for you. I didn't want it to be this way. I just thought that this miserable woman in front of me was pathetic." Diana was silent for a long time before she finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "Frank, I'm doing fine. You don't need to worry about me. We're different," he said. "I was born with a silver spoon. Whatever I want, I get. As long as I get what I want, I don't care what anyone else says. It was for you that I said all those terrible things." Diana's body suddenly swayed. "I hate this. Frank, just give me one more chance, please," she begged. In that moment, I was struggling to suppress my own bitter resentment. I knew there was too much standing between us. I had already gotten more than I deserved. I had no right to ask for anything else. As long as she was happy, it didn't matter who she loved. I would forgive her. Love was never an equal partnership, not from the very beginning. I pushed the divorce agreement across the table to her, covering the drawing I'd made of my little caged bird. Every line of my signature felt like a knife carving into my heart. In the end, my rational mind won. I thought I would never see her again in this lifetime, not until the very last moments before my death. The medicine she'd given me had no effect, and by the time I was rushed to the hospital, it was almost too late. I was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. I thought I was about to follow her into death. But then, she appeared. She was crying uncontrollably, and in the moments I drifted in and out of consciousness, unable to escape the pain, she was always there, right by my side. 10 years passed, and then another 10. In all that time, there was never the slightest possibility of me leaving. I calmly accepted my fate. "Diana, we can never go back." I just looked at her, feeling small and insignificant. I closed my eyes. Her face began to blur, until all that was left was a shattered reflection. "Diana, you don't love me anymore. Just let me go," I whispered. I raised a hand to cover my face, my fingertips brushing against my own cold lips. "Frank, your karma has finally arrived. I love you. I love you so much. Just give me a little more time," she begged. I didn't open the door. I walked straight downstairs. I didn't love her anymore, and I refused to be dragged down into her mess again. I didn't want to relive that unbearable past. My heart would ache, a pain so intense it would steal my breath. The depth of my love for her was matched only by the depth of my hatred. A year later, Diana was released from prison. I got a call from my dad. He told me Diana's illness was getting worse. He hoped I would go back and see her. After thinking it over for a long time, I went back to my dad's house. He handed me a sum of money and the keys to a brand new house that was entirely mine. He told me that before my mom passed away, she hadn't left any last words. She had just looked at me and smiled, with no sign of regret. A sudden pain shot through my heart. My dad looked at me, a sad smile in his eyes. He said something that made me freeze, suddenly unsteady on my feet. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded. The woman with him quickly stood up. She stopped the man from stepping forward and then gave Diana a formal bow. "Frank, congratulations on your promotion. The company is saved." So that's how it was. I forced a smile, though my heart felt like it was bleeding. "Diana, you're really something else. You don't love me. You don't care about me. So why did you have to lie to me one more time? You knew I loved you. You knew your feelings were the most important thing in the world to me." My dad looked at me, a flicker of pity in his eyes. "Frank, don't blame her anymore." He said he just wanted me to talk things over with her properly. I left, and I never looked back. I never wanted to see her again. I knew there was an insurmountable distance between us. We were destined to be from two different worlds. It was impossible for us to ever be together. I looked at my dad, and as I spoke, I saw the color drain from Diana's face, leaving it deathly white. I looked at them and said, enunciating every word, "She and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. After that, aside from sending money on time every month, I never went back. The hallway was silent, except for the echo of my own footsteps. My dad sent me a lot of messages. They all said the same thing. I deleted every single one of them without a second thought. I didn't reply. I had no intention of replying. I didn't want to see Frank. Diana's tearful voice came from the other end of the line. He has a hereditary illness. His mother had it too. I looked up, my expression calm. Diana, why can't you just let me go? Her entire body was trembling. Frank, I tried. I really don't love you anymore. My dad said he loves you very much. An image of her flashed in my mind, tilting her head back to down an entire bottle of wine. Now, the memory just makes me feel sick to my stomach. But I don't love you anymore. I crossed my legs and nonchalantly said that it meant nothing, not a single thing. I just stood there, watching her silently. Frank, I loved you for 10 years. I gave a sarcastic laugh. So what? It's not like I'm a bad catch myself. Frank, don't leave, please, she begged. Can we start over? Please. I looked into her eyes, and in those eyes that I once thought belonged only to me, I thought I saw a flicker of regret. Weren't you the one who wanted to divorce me? I asked. A flash of panic crossed her eyes. She clenched her fists, her teeth sinking into my hand. Frank, what do you mean by that? She asked, her head bowed, her voice raspy and broken. My words made her tremble violently. It looked like she was about to collapse. The person she loved had always been him, that arrogant, privileged man who thought he was better than everyone else. I looked up at her. Should I go with you? Would that be okay? I was the only person we had ever truly loved. I never saw Diana again after that. I heard that around that time, she sent a short video clip, along with a recording of my conversation with my dad, to Sophia. She was even more ruthless than I had imagined. I had never once thought of hurting her. The person I loved was myself. For him, I felt nothing but hatred. I just never expected that he still held onto that last shred of hope. The next morning when I went downstairs, I saw Diana waiting for me. The same Diana who is usually so cold and indifferent. Frank, she called out. Her eyes lit up for a moment, then the light faded. I froze as she wrapped her arms around me. Her face was burning hot. Yes, she was sick. She had a high fever. She seemed thinner, but maybe not. I didn't have time to process it. She hugged me and burst into tears, waiting right there for me. I walked over to her. I just stood there quietly, looking down at Diana lying on the ground, and for a moment, I had no idea how to react. The blood staining her dress red also stung my eyes. It looked like she was trying to say my name, but she was in too much pain to speak. Her pupils were unfocused and dilated. Diana was rushed into the operating room. She was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 10 years in prison. I went to visit her once. She wanted to talk to me through the glass partition. Chloe and I got married. Diana had an easy time in prison and was released early. She didn't show the slightest bit of regret. She just wanted an explanation from me. I, on the other hand, spent over half a year in the hospital. The stress of it all had caused me to develop stomach cancer. With stomach cancer, you might die or you might live. When I heard the news, I suddenly laughed. I stared out the window at the swaying shadows of the trees. I didn't hate her. I just hated myself. But it was over. It was time to give up hope. I looked at my own reflection in the glass and said calmly, the only person you ever loved was yourself. It was never me. Diana, in this life, I'd say we're even. Her pupils contracted sharply, but she didn't say another word. I turned and walked away from the glass. After 10 years of love and hate, I never once regretted it. Diana's appearance in my life was the last wish my parents had for me before they died. But I didn't care about that either. There was some truth to it. I left. I walked away without looking back. Time would heal all wounds. I still have a long life ahead of me. I don't need to ruin myself over someone who doesn't love me. I still have a long, dark road to walk alone. Diana, we will never see each other again. Diana's perspective. When Frank left, I didn't try to stop him. I was tired. I didn't want him to leave me again because of his pride. In that moment, an intense pain shot through my heart. I think that's when I started to feel regret. I vaguely remember the first time I saw him. I was 11. He was so small and thin, so timid and pitiful. I glanced up at him. He was only a few years older than me back then, but he was small for his age. He just said, "You're so nice." I took him home with me. Frank stood frozen, not moving, not saying a word. The light in his eyes instantly vanished. He didn't hesitate for a second. He just looked up at me and said, "You're so nice. I don't have a home anymore." In that moment, it felt like something sharp had pierced my heart. I think I must have fallen in love with him right then and there. I love him so much. I looked at those horrible photos. I shielded him with my own body. I decided that as long as I was around, he would always have a home.